There is a nasty four-letter word right now that is being tossed around in the situation that we're facing. No, it's not some of the other four-letter words that you've probably been using, if you're anything like me. This word is more dangerous. This word has the power to build you up or destroy you. The word is hope. Hope is a dangerous word. It can make you rock solid, or it can take you out at your knees. Because many of us are asking this question right now: is there hope? I would answer that question with a question. Who or what is the focus of your hope? Because whatever that focus is will make you strong, or it can weaken you. Because things that are temporary around us, oftentimes we put our hope in. For some of us, our hope is in government. Nothing against government. I voted, don't worry. But some of us, maybe our hope is in our loved ones, people that are close to us. Or maybe, how about this one? It's in our insurance company. The way that we define hope is very powerful, and we have to be careful how we do that. When we look at the world, usually this is how they define hope. It's optimistic thinking that circumstances will improve in the future because of someone or something. Let's take a look at that. It's just optimistic thinking. I believe it's going to get better just because. Sometime in the future because of someone or something. Now, if my hope was in something like my insurance, I'm telling you right now, I would be curled up in the fetal position because I just found out a couple days ago that my insurance company doesn't have enough assets to cover the claims. Yeah, I had a whole bunch of people come up to me after, which insurance company do you have? Which insurance company do you have? Merced, don't worry, it's probably not yours. And if it is, we're in the same boat together. But that is something that it's like, wow, even insurance, we should be able to put some hope in that because it's a guarantee, right? But even that is temporary. So if my hope was in something like that, I would be a mess right now. I would be completely destroyed. That's why hope can be dangerous. But biblical hope is completely different. It's expecting great things from God in the future. It's an expectation. It's not a throw a penny in the well, rub a magic lamp, hopefully you say enough right prayers, and maybe God will do something. It is a rock-solid expectation. The focus of that expectation and that work in the future is the living God alone. The one that transcends time, that is even beyond eternity, knows everything about us before we were even born. That God. We can expect great things from Him. I think it's probably an appropriate time for us to step out of our situation just for a minute. Because sometimes it's easy to get consumed in the situation that we're facing. But if we can go and look at someone else's situation, maybe even at a different point in time, we can learn from them. Because we realize, yes, our situation is maybe different from them, but if we can learn something from them that worked for them back then, maybe it can work for us as we move forward. So I want to go back and take a look at a group of kids. These kids needed hope. Every week, sometimes even every day, they would go to a place called the synagogue, their church. While they were in their church, they heard about hope. That they were expecting one day God would send a Messiah, somebody that would deliver them from the oppression that was all around them. These kids needed hope because they saw how Rome was in their land, how Rome was killing their fellow Jews, how Rome was taxing their parents beyond what they could afford. Rome was stealing their joy and their hope. But they would come together and be reminded that one day in the future, God Almighty would do something. He would send a Messiah, and they could expect it. Well, this group of kids grew up. As they started to get a little bit older, there were rumors about this man named Joshua, Jesus, which also means, never mind, that's Hebrew, I'm not going there, moving on, which means Jesus. His name was Jesus. And they heard that he turned water into wine. Then they noticed he was going and talking to people that society had a very clear caste system, that he wasn't supposed to go there or do that, but he would. Then he was healing the lame, healing the sick. His fame continued to grow and grow because he was doing things that people had never seen before. The crowds were growing by the day. All of them thinking, maybe this is the Messiah. One day, this crowd had become so large and they were with Jesus, they were hungry. Jesus took 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. He broke them and he fed over 15,000 people. After this had done, everyone was like, this is it. This has to be our new king. And they wanted by force to make him king, but Jesus said no, and he escaped. Well, that night, his disciples got into a boat, went to the other side of the lake called Capernaum. Jesus walked on the water to get to the other side of the lake. While they were there, they went to the synagogue. The next morning, the crowd woke up. Realizing that Jesus wasn't there anymore, they set out to find out. A rumor had been circulating that he was in the synagogue at Capernaum. What did they do? They ran there as fast as they could. But their motivation for following after Jesus would quickly be exposed by Jesus himself. And that motivation that we see comes from John 6:26. Jesus answered, "Very truly I tell you, you are looking for me not because you saw the signs are performed. You're not here because you believe I'm the Messiah. Nuh-uh. But because you ate the loaves and had your fill." He's saying you're just here because you want to see another miracle. That's it. Well, the crowd is kind of taken back. They're like, oh, no, that's not why we're here. We're here because we want to do the works that God requires of us. Great Sunday school answer. Jesus says, okay, if you want to do the works that God requires of you, you need to believe in the one that he has sent. Then Jesus turns a corner on his earthly ministry. He tells them, hey, I'm the bread of life. If you really want to have life, you need to eat my flesh. And right about there, everyone's starting to step back, and their eyes are getting really big, like, what is this guy talking about? But then he goes on. He makes it even worse. He says, you need to drink my blood if you really want to experience life. You can just start seeing the smoke coming out of the people in the crowd. They're like, what is going on here? And we know what they're thinking, because in verse 60 it says this. On hearing it, many of his disciples, these are people that had been following Jesus, said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? Key word, this is getting hard. This isn't easy anymore. This isn't where I just walk around, follow Jesus, see what cool thing he does. He even gives me some lunch every once in a while. And this is just a lot of fun. This is cool. No, it's getting hard. It's amazing that when the pressure is applied, we find out what we're really made of. Because when the pressure is applied to the crowd, we see how they respond. In John 6:66, it says, from this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. You know what we don't see? We don't see Jesus running after these people saying, no, come back. Let me explain it to you. Let me make it easier for you. No, come on back, just come back. No, he says, nothing. Because he's okay if they leave. Then Jesus turns to his disciples, the 12 that have been following him, and he has a question for them. He says, you do not want to leave too, do you? And Jesus asked the 12. These 12 are facing a crossroads. Because all those years ago, when they were in the synagogue, when they were little, and they were hearing about this hope, this expectation that God was going to do something amazing through a Messiah, They either had to hold on to that hope was Jesus, or let it go, because it wasn't cool to follow Jesus any longer. It wasn't fun to follow Jesus any longer. It was hard. What would they do? We see their response in verse 68 through 69. Simon Peter, yes, the Simon Peter that always is sticking his foot in his mouth, usually saying the wrong thing at the wrong time, he gets this one right. Here's what he says: Lord, to whom shall we go? We have no other option. This is it. You have the words of eternal life. We have come to believe and to know that you are the Holy One of God. They are boldly declaring, we expected God to do something amazing. You are that hope we've been holding on to, that we heard about when we were just little boys and little girls in the synagogue. We believe it's you, and we will hold on to it even though everyone else is turning away. We're staying. They make the choice. They continue to follow Jesus. It doesn't get easier. Actually, it gets harder. It gets to the point where Jesus is taken. He is hung up on a cross and dies. At that point, I'm sure these disciples were like, we've left everything to follow you. We expected God to do something amazing in and through you. And they were confused. But then 3 days later, the greatest event in human history occurs when Jesus comes back from the dead, proving that he was God's chosen one to save people from their sins and restore their relationship with him. These disciples, because they didn't leave, because they held on to hope, they physically saw him resurrected. But the story wasn't over. It was after that, Jesus said, okay, now I have a task for you. You need to go and tell other people about this hope. You get to tell other people about my love for them and the Father's love for them. Then teach them how to follow after me. After that, the disciples go and begin, they didn't even know it at the time, the early church. And that group of people, from generation to generation to generation, has held out on the hope, the expectation that God's greatest work in this world was through Jesus Christ, and that is a hope every single one of us can hold on to in the past, right now, and eventually in the future, because they held on to hope. So is there hope? I don't know, because it all depends on how you answer the second question. Who or what is the focus of your hope? Because if it's anything temporary, at some point in this life, you will be let down. Doesn't matter if it's a person, a situation, or even a bank account. At some point, it will let you down. If your hope is in those things, it can destroy you. But if it's in the eternal God who loves you and has an amazing plan for your life, you can expect great things from him in the future because he's God. In Romans 15:13, it says, may the God of, here it is, hope, fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. He is the God of hope because he's the object of hope. When we put our hope in him, it is rock solid. We cannot plan it out exactly what it's going to look like or how it's going to look, but we can take confidence and build our lives on that truth because he's God. He is the God of hope. We can expect great things from him in the future. I thought I knew what hope was before November 8th. I thought I had a concept of it, but I didn't really understand it. Then on November 8th, I was hit in the face, much like many of you. And between November 8th and November 26th, I had a level of hope. But that all changed for me on November 26th when I finally understood what hope was all about. Here were the circumstances surrounding my day that day. I found out that there were members of President Trump's cabinet, local officials, some representatives from CAL FIRE, the National Forest Service. They wanted to hold a meeting up in Paradise at a church. The connection for this possible meeting had been attending our church in the past. They called us up and said, hey, could we hold this meeting in your church building, at your facility? I said, absolutely. Well, they said, if you want, we want you to be there so you can help kind of just host the meeting. Basically, stay out of the way, smile, and don't say anything. I did it really well. But with this opportunity came my first chance to get back into Paradise. I was expecting the worst. I thought for sure that as I started to drive up Clark Road, I was going to have a meltdown. Because I've only been here 4 months. But I had been in the community long enough to know where things stood, and I had seen the pictures, and I was preparing for the worst. But as the police finally let me go, when I started heading up Clark, something happened that I wasn't expecting. The devastation was there, but I started to smile. Here's why. I already started seeing new buildings. I started seeing families. I started having a vision of what our communities could look like. It started to blow me away because I had like the tissues ready. Like I'm getting ready. I know I'm probably going to melt down when I see the devastation. But the closer I came to the church building, the more hope I had. The expectation of God, you're going to do something here that only you can do. I pull into the church parking lot. There's an insurance adjuster from Church Mutual with me and some other guy that he brought along. And as we get out, I'm just kind of smiling. And I think they're a little bit like, this guy's office rocker. He's lost it. But as I walk in and I walk through the building, everything is still there. And I just keep smiling, thinking this can be the center of hope for this community as we move forward. But then as I leave the building and I'm looking around, I cross over to the other side of the street. And it was a perfect representation of where I feel we are at as a community. When I say community, I mean Chico, I mean Magalia, all of us, because we're all in this together. This isn't just a Paradise thing. This is all of us. And as I was standing on the other side of the church, I shot this video that I want you to watch. I finally made it up to Paradise today, and behind me you can see a lot of the devastation that's happened to our city. It was amazing though, as I was driving up the hill, and it's the first time I've been able to get up here, I was feeling something that I haven't really felt up to this point. And it's weird, but I'm gonna tell you what it was. It was hope. As I was driving up the hill and seeing the destruction, I just felt this overwhelming hope rising up inside of me of saying, okay, God, you're big enough. And then I finally came to the church, and pretty much what was behind me was most of the way in. But then, as I got to the church, that hope just overwhelmed me. No, I didn't cry. It was too emotional to even cry. But I felt like in that moment, God was just saying, we got this. And I don't know what that looks like. I don't have all the answers. But I think the visual representation of where I am standing even right now, directly across from the church, is a place where there is devastation, there's no hope, discouragement, and fear. And then right across the road is what I believe is the source of hope, faith, strength, and perseverance. And right now, we are at a crossroads, and we get to see what God is going to do and how He is going to transform all of us in our community from this to to looking more like this. So thank you for being on this journey with me. I love you guys, and I'm not sure why, but I am so hopeful right now of what God is going to do. God bless, and thanks for being you. Never forget, you are loved. The journey's not over. Right after I shot that video, I went into the meeting with all of the government officials. The Secretary of the Interior and the Secretary of Agriculture were there, along with members of the media, CAL FIRE, and different organizations. It was Secretary Zanke that said, who served in the Army, had done a tour in, the Armed Forces, did a tour in Afghanistan. He said, I have never seen devastation like this before. That kind of took me back, and there was a great discussion between local and government authorities, and it was good. Like, don't get me wrong, it was good. But there wasn't like this overwhelming hope flowing out of the room. It was a great experience, and I'm glad I was a part of it, and the members that were there did their best to instill hope and vision for the future. It was great, but I just kind of left there saying, that was good, but it fails into comparison to what I was experiencing as I drove up the hill. Because remember, my hope is based on the living God, not just on someone or an organization. Now, God can use those, don't get me wrong. He will use those. But it wasn't the basis for my hope. After the meeting was over, I think I was told, if I remember right, that I was supposed to go straight down the hill, but I think it was more of a suggestion than a mandatory thing. So if you're here and I was in the wrong, you can arrest me later, but at least let me finish. So once everything is done, everyone leaves, we close up the church, I decided to go to my house because I had seen pictures of my house, but I hadn't been there yet. So instead of going straight down Skyway, I took a little bit of a detour. Same thing. As I was driving to my house, I didn't know what to expect. I was like, okay, that was one thing, like driving up Clark, going to the church, like that's one thing, but I'm like, okay, I'm just going to melt when I see my house. Like, this is it. But same thing again. As I'm getting closer to my neighborhood and I'm seeing the destruction, I'm starting to smile again. Finally pull up to my house. There it is, right before me, completely collapsed, just like the pictures that I saw. Everything is gone. Call my wife, FaceTime my wife and kids, show them the devastation. And the thing that had happened is it had rained, so it was soaked everywhere around the ground. Show them everything, and they said, we need to go. As I'm standing above my house, I'm standing on this rock because the ground is soaked. And I have an honest conversation with God about where I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, and at the exact same time the sun is going down. It's a beautiful sunset. And I told him, God, I don't understand this, but I still believe and expect you to do great things. You're going to think like I'm some self-absorbed jerk, but really I'm not. But I shot another video. And the reason I shot the video was because I knew I needed this moment for me. That if no one ever saw this again, I needed it for me. Because this was kind of a stake in the moment ground for saying, God, I believe in you, I hope in you, even in the midst of all of this, I still need this. So I shot this video for me. But after I shot it, the Lord pressed upon my heart, you need to share this. So here's what I shot. I'm standing here next to the remains of our house in paradise. Our neighbor right next door to us, brand new build, his house is still standing, and our neighbor on the other side of us, his house is still standing. The amazing thing that I noticed when I came up, our neighborhood, every single house in our immediate neighborhood is still standing, except for ours. As I was standing here having a little bit of a conversation with God, all I could say was, I still believe. I still believe that the power of the Holy Spirit is inside of me. I still believe that Jesus has complete authority over everything. And I still believe that this is for the Father's glory. I believe he's going to use this to draw people to himself, and I believe he is going to use this to advance his kingdom. Do I understand it? Absolutely not. But as I stand here right now, literally standing on a rock, I'm reminded that God is our rock, the one that we can stand on in hard times. So even though I don't understand it and I have a lot of questions, I still believe. Hope. Expecting great things from God in the future. When I came down Skyway, I was filled with hope. Because it wasn't based on the government officials that I met. Yes, some of them were very nice. And it wasn't based on my circumstances. It was based on the fact that I follow the living God. And he can do anything that he wants. And it wasn't something I was expecting or was even planning for, but I was overcome with what he can do as we move forward. We all need hope on some levels. I want to talk to a unique group just for a couple minutes, very briefly here, that I think need hope. And it's a group that many of us probably don't think about. The group I want to talk to is some of you right now are suffering from survivor's guilt. And you need hope. Let me explain it. Survivor's guilt is simply this. You survive a horrific event in some way or somehow. First of all, for some of them, the most common one that I'm hearing already is people that didn't lose their home. You have this guilt of like, I feel so bad because I still have my house and everyone else lost theirs. Or others of you, I feel bad because I live down here in Chico and I wasn't up there to really understand what's going on, and I feel bad because I can't really relate. Or others of us, you feel bad because none of my family members perished, but I know these people over here, they lost loved ones, and I feel guilty because I didn't lose loved ones. Survivor's guilt is real, and it's okay. Here's what you need to do, though. You need to have hope. You need to expect that God will use whatever circumstance you find yourself in right now. He is going to use that for his glory in the future. The reason some of you weren't up on the hill that day was because when people were coming down, you were the hands and feet of Jesus. When they came into your places of employment, you welcomed them. When they came to evacuation centers, you held them, you hugged them. You smiled at them, you cried with them. Others of you, because your homes didn't burn or you live down here, you've already opened them up so that you can show Jesus' hospitality to people right now. He saved your home and put you in the circumstances you're in for a reason. Hold on to that he will use your circumstance in the future. No, don't hold on to it. Expect it. Whatever circumstance you find yourself in right now, God is going to use that to advance his kingdom. So survivor's guilt is real. You need to work through that. I'm not saying don't deny it, but you also need to hold on to hope. Of saying, no, there was a reason my house is still standing. There was a reason I wasn't up there that day. There was a reason, whatever circumstance you find yourself in, that God has placed me here, and I'm going to use whatever he has given me at this point to advance his kingdom through this. Hold on to hope and expect him to use you. Because here's my hope. Everything that I'm about to tell you, I believe can and will happen because there is a living God who loves us. Here's my hope. My hope is that the infrastructure of Paradise, California, Magalia, and the surrounding areas is going to go up faster than any official could ever imagine. My hope is that rebuilding and cleanup and water meters and electrical lines and trees that need to come down will go up faster than anyone could have anticipated. I believe and I have hope that people will come together stronger because of this, not just in this area, but in our county, in our communities, in our nation, because of this event. I have hope that God is going to spark a revival physically, mentally, emotionally, and absolutely spiritually. Because He is the God that can do that. And He will. He is, guaranteed. He's going to use government officials. He will use government. He will use local officials. He will use senators, representatives. He will use firefighters. He will use carpenters. He's going to use everybody in this revival to see God use this whole thing for His glory. But that's not the best part of my hope. Here's the best part. The best part is I believe one day, for all of us who believe that Jesus was God's Son, that He rose from the dead, one day we will stand before the Father. And as we are all standing there together, as a community and everyone that has contributed in any way to this revival, there's going to be a crown that's placed before every single one of us. One crown. It's going to be massive and it's going to be beautiful. And on the crown, it's simply going to say November 8th, 2018, dash through eternity. And at one time, we are all going to pick up that crown together because God used us all. And we're going to pick it up and we're going to bring it before the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords with a smile on our face and lay it before His eternal throne. And that crown will be there forever and ever and ever. And God will look at them. He's going to look at us. And He's going to say, well done, good and faithful servants. That's my hope. Because I expect the living God to work in the future. If you're struggling with hope maybe a little bit this morning, hold on to the hope that maybe God has given the people around you for a season. That's okay. But for others of us, we're coming to that crossroads much like the disciples. And are we really going to hold on to this hope that we've talked about for some of us our entire lives? And are we going to keep following after Jesus, whether we understand it or not? Or will we be like the crowd that says, hey, this is too hard, I'm out? I believe we have a community, we have officials, and people of influence that God has called together for such a time as this, because He is getting ready to do some of His greatest work that we will literally ever see in our lifetime. And we get to be at the center of it. I expect great things from God because He loves us. We're going to finish off this morning by singing a song of declaration about our hope that we have. It is an old one, but it's a good one. As we join together in singing this last song, let this be a declaration personally and publicly for all of us to say, our hope is built on Jesus. Let's sing together.
My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. On Christ the solid rock, on Christ the solid rock,